And it is time now for Patel It Like It Is, where Dr. Alok Patel shares health advice on the topics that matter most to you. Today, he's talking celiac disease. The American Journal of Gastroenterology says cases of celiac are on the rise. Now, according to the CDC, celiac disease is a serious autoimmune condition that creates an inflammation, damaging the lining of the small intestine when you eat gluten. Here's Dr. Patel with everything you need to know during the Celiac Awareness Month.
You've probably seen gluten-free bread, waffles, spaghetti, even makeup. Because over the past decade, gluten-free foods and products have seen an almost celebrity status boost in marketing. And for people with a gluten-related medical condition like celiac disease, these options are amazing. But for others without a condition, some still think, no, gluten is bad. Others don't. So what's the deal? Well, May is Celiac Disease Awareness Month, so here are 7 things to know about gluten and celiac disease. The word gluten actually comes from a Latin word which means glue. Cool, I didn't know that. Gluten is a group of naturally occurring storage proteins found in certain foods that give it qualities like shape and texture. A lot of foods contain gluten, especially foods that contain the big 3: wheat, barley, or rye. That includes deliciousness like pasta, noodles, breads, and crackers. Then there's other food that has hidden gluten. It may not be as obvious, like soup, candy, even salad dressing. Surveys estimate that up to 20 to 30% of Americans try to avoid gluten. Sometimes it's because of a medical condition. Other times it's because of a perceived health benefit. Only about 1% of Americans have celiac disease, but possibly more have another form of a gluten intolerance or sensitivity. Celiac disease is a genetic condition in which if you eat gluten, your immune system will target it, leading to potential damage and inflammation in your small intestine. And this can cause symptoms like pain, bloating, nausea, vomiting, and more. Long-term complications can include conditions like weight loss, malnutrition, joint problems, delayed puberty, anemia, even liver issues in rare cases. And the only treatment is a lifelong gluten-free diet. For diagnosis, a doctor will first ask you some questions and then conduct a physical exam. And if needed, get blood tests and potentially imaging and a biopsy of your gut, which is not as scary as it sounds. And lastly, avoiding gluten if you don't have a medical reason to isn't necessarily a good thing. Gluten-free foods may be lower in protein, magnesium, iron, fiber, vitamin B, and other nutrients, and higher in preservatives, saturated fat, and sugar. Repeat after me. Gluten is not a villain, unless you have a serious medical condition. So repeat after me again. When in doubt, talk to a doctor, and please do not self-diagnose a gluten intolerance, sensitivity, or anything for that matter.
All right, Dr. Alok Patel joins me now for more on this. Dr. Patel, what are some other gluten-related medical conditions? Because you can have an intolerance without necessarily having celiac disease, right?
Absolutely, Diane. You know, according to experts and celiac awareness campaigns, about 1% of Americans have celiac disease, but there are an entire broad category of these non-celiac related gluten insensitivities and intolerances. Like, for example, about 5 to 6% of Americans may have a non-celiac gluten sensitivity, but there are some other conditions as well that people may have, such as a wheat allergy, and these can present in a similar way with intestinal or GI problems if you eat gluten. There's also something called gluten ataxia, which is neurologic symptoms associated with eating gluten, usually comes up later in life. And even a skin condition, dermatitis herpetiformis, which is a rash associated with consuming gluten, which is often found in people with celiac disease. So yes, this is a broad category, which is why it's important if you have any type of issues associated with eating particular foods that you seek medical care.
Now, you mentioned that in obvious sources of gluten. Gluten is in a lot of things, and some of it is not very clear. So how do you avoid gluten if you do have a sensitivity to it?
You know, it's not as easy as just having a magnifying lens and looking at it. And this is why a lot of people out there who have celiac disease or gluten intolerance really need to know how to be a sleuth at identifying gluten. Because guess what? If you're out at a farmer's market, restaurant, or friend's house, there's not always a nice clean label. So the first thing you want to do is, yes, try to see if it says gluten-free on a label. The FDA has a definition of gluten-free, but it is not required to have this on food products. So you want to make sure you also then know what ingredients are likely to contain gluten, including allergen statements, know which foods are naturally gluten-free, such as fruits, vegetables, and legumes. And when in doubt, ask for gluten-free options. Diane, this is why a lot of people carry their own food with them if they have a serious illness.
I tried to prepare a gluten-free meal for a good friend of mine just the other day and realized at the last second that one of the ingredients that I had put in had gluten in it without me realizing it. So luckily I caught it, but I just, you know, sometimes interrogating people, it's not rude. It's just you looking out for yourself because they may not even realize that they put gluten in the recipe.
You're a compassionate chef.
Exactly. And you mentioned that people shouldn't self-diagnose a gluten intolerance. Why not? Why not just avoid it as a precaution?
You know, I understand the temptation too, but there's two big issues here. Is number one, if you have a serious medical condition that you haven't identified, there might be some long-term complications or some lifestyle changes that you could make to better suit your outcome if you have a good diagnosis. And also, we don't want to villainize gluten itself because there are some opportunities to get some good nutrition as well as excuse me, the fact that gluten foods can be accessible and affordable. There's whole grains out there that are heart healthy because they have fiber. You also can get iron, calcium, types of vitamin B, and protein. Yes, obviously, gluten-free foods include categories like fruits and vegetables, which we want everyone to eat. But hey, focus on having a complete healthy diet rather than just saying, I'm going to avoid this one product because I think that's what I should do.
All right, Dr. Patel, always great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dr. Patel is taking your questions, so just leave a message on our Instagram feed. He just might answer your question right here on Friday.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.